Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Digital Live, a podcast series by IEEE Signal Processing Society. Founded as IEEE's first society in 1948, the Signal Processing Society is the world's premier association for signal processing engineers and industry professionals. In this series, we'll have candid discussions about developments of various areas of signal processing, which are the underlying ubiquitous technologies for today's modern society. In this fourth episode, we'll be discussing the latest research and innovations in speech recognition technologies and their impact across various industries. Our guest speaker is Professor Shinji Watanabe from the Language Technologies Institute, and a special guest co-host, Professor Sanjeev Khudanpur, who is the director of the Center of Language and Speech Processing at Johns Hopkins University. Welcome.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Sanjeev Khudanpur from Johns Hopkins, and I'm happy to have this discussion today with my dear friend and colleague, Professor Shinji Watanabe from CMU. Shinji, why don't you go and tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into the questions?
Sure. Thank you, Sanjeev. My name is Shinji Watanabe, now the Associate Professor in Language Technology Institute, Carnegie Mellon University. And I have been working on speech processing for 20 years. And actually, I am also working at the Johns Hopkins, and where my Sanjeev is my former colleague. So I'm very excited to have a discussion with you today.
Okay, so let's launch into it. I guess we've been working on speech recognition for, so many years, but we've really seen dramatic improvements, growth, whatever you want to call it, in the last 10 years or so. So do you want to summarize in your own thinking what have been the improvements in both accuracy and efficiency of speech recognition in the last decade?
I think let me start from the big kind of improvement in terms of the accuracy, which happened in around 2000, starting from 2012, and having a big impact in the 2015 or 2016 in the industry, where the deep neural network-based approaches reaching to the kind of human parity. This is actually one of the great kind of advanced achievement in the accuracy side. But that is not the end of our kind of development. After that, many people also started to more making the kind of system efficient and simple. For example, end-to-end neural network models, which actually I say my personal the opinions, do not fully improve the performance from the previous high accuracy systems, but making the kind of system very simplified, so that we can actually making the efficiency quite kind of better. This happens in around 2017 up to now. But I also want to mention that this kind of the accuracy and the efficiency, this kind of the development is actually happened quite kind of interchangeably. For example, I say now we have a second, or I don't know how many waves, but at least the next wave of the big accuracy improvement comes from the big models, like OpenAI Whisper or large spoken language models, which actually further improve the accuracy from the previous the deep neural network-based error. And then I'm very looking forward that the further improvement in the efficiency side may happen similar to we had in the end-to-end neural network-based efficiency improvement.
So, Shinji, what do you think are driving these improvements? Is it data? Is it computing? Is it modeling? Is it some other innovation? Where do you think these are coming from?
Yeah, this is actually a lot of the combination happens at the same time. For example, yes, data is getting the more to make the deep neural network the sufficiently trained, for sure. So the amount of data is important, or quality of the data is very important. But at the same time, we also had a good computing resources where we kind of changed our computing resources from CPU and GPUs, which enabled such kind of a big jump. However, this is not the only kind of part. Once we kind of move to the deep neural network, we have to have a lot of tuning, lot of tweaking, or a lot of kind of knowledge sharing, which is very important. And that again, for this kind of other improvement is not only from the previous two factors. Open source or some other kind of knowledge and shareable platform is very important. I just would like to mention Calvi project that is actually significantly the sharing, the improving this kind of knowledge sharing part. And then everyone at that time and until now can actually enjoy this kind of advancement by using our the computing resources. So this is again the deep neural network is a kind of one important component. But other than that, the data, the computing and open source, these combinations are actually quite important to realizing these kind of activities.
It's interesting. I'm happy that you also echo the sentiment, or you echo the sentiment that the sharing of knowledge through open source has been key in these advances, so that not just a few, but many people can try new ideas. But, if I think about the experience of the English-speaking world with speech recognition, it almost feels like a solved problem now. So are we done, or do you see areas where it still doesn't work? Are there systematic gaps in the technology?
Yeah, so this part, I just would like to kind of mention that some of the projects that I and even your group are also working together sometimes in our kind of community, which is kind of multi-speaker conversational speech recognition or understanding of whatever. This is actually for me still a big gap in terms of the accuracy. For example, sometimes even for the state-of-the-art systems, we got a 60 or 70% word error rate. This is error rate, not accuracy. So, which is, the quite large, the gap, based on what kind of our current technologies and the what our normal, the human conversation are doing. So this part is kind of definitely one of the big problems. But in addition, I also want to mention about the multilingual, dialectal, accented speech recognition, and where I actually encounter my English is, for example, the Japanese accented English. So this is okay, but many of the cases, especially some the complicated pronunciation of the English, they are not well kind of recognized. However, this is not fully my fault because I can speak, I can conversate with other people. People understand my background, people understand my kind of Japanese accent, and our conversation is actually doing well, while the system, still majority is a kind of standard English speech recognition or other major the languages like Mandarin, the Germany, the Japanese, and so on. So I think these other parts are still kind of largely missing for the community to reaching to the goal of what we want. And these are kind of exciting areas that technology should be focused.
Okay, so multi-talker, multilingual. I guess one could also think about children, elderly. I guess we would, okay.
Yes, exactly. They are also very important. Again, our kind of current technologies are great, but it's significantly biased. I think children disordered speech, or some other kind of other factors that affect our kind of speech, the communications, but still we use speech communication. In this scenario, should be actually more focused in our technologies.
Well, then there's another thing I've been thinking about, like, especially after Whisper came out, was it like 3 years ago at this time, maybe a little bit more? And then nowadays, some of the larger language models also start having speech capabilities. But one of the things we run into in research in particular is we found these models to be huge. Now, I'm thinking that might also be a challenge in deployment, right? I mean, how do we do these things? Maybe small devices. Also, how about things like, real-time streaming? Have we overcome those problems, or have we sort of brought them back by changing our architectures?
Yeah, I think this is a great research direction to me. As you mentioned, speech compared with other modality, we always require real-time, low latency interactions. Otherwise, we cannot actually using the current kind of speech technologies as the daily conversations. So, in this sense, I think that the current big model based approaches should have some kind of improvement in this kind of architecture to make the kind of a real-time or low latency the application other-centric. Or another direction would be that we can actually stick to our dedicated model. One of the big kind of advantages of using such large models is not just improve speech recognition, but they actually also gives us a better kind of multitask capability where, for example, OpenAI Whisper providing the speech translation and language identification and so on. And the large language model integration of the speech interface, again, can actually open the door to the various kind of others, the natural language processing, multitasking, the blooms that are based on this kind of interface. However, again, they are more like a multitasking capability, while if we kind of are making our application to the speech-centric, like just kind of transcribing speech, or just kind of understanding what this kind of speech conversation is ongoing, maybe we should also keep the direction of dedicated model. So I am actually thinking about that we should, for a while, having a kind of two research direction ongoing. One is the large language model or some other kind of big scaled model, and how to make the kind of a model to be efficient and the real-time interaction is kind of having a kind of a natural nature, that we can focus on the dedicated model. But hope this kind of two direction can be joining again, and then having another level of the speech, the research, speech technologies, and then we will have a further improvement. Like again, we had in the deep neural network-based approach, end-to-end approaches, actually combining to have now the kind of one part of the solution, the major English, we can have a good kind of the accuracy and efficiency. I'm sure that this kind of direction would happen again. Yeah.
I see. No, this is interesting. The two directions you pointed out, in my opinion, also align with two other things. The idea of bringing in large language models and all that seems to hint at the idea that humans, when we do speech recognition, we bring a lot of cognitive processing and word knowledge into the whole process. And that's where these big models will come in. And then on the other hand, our neural system is so efficient, power efficient, speed efficient. And so you're essentially saying, let's reach or surpass human capabilities, both in terms of the sensory hardware, which is efficient, and in terms of the cognitive backend, which is powerful. That's very nice. Yeah. Anyway, so this is really nice.
Yeah, this would be the even for example, multi-speaker problem or the multilingual dialectal or the children disorder speech, we should make. For example, current model, again, for example, if we have a more multi-speaker data, if we have a more children speech data, to some extent, it can be solved, but it's still having a big kind of a lack of the interpretability and efficiency. Remember that, as you said, cognitive model or some other signal processing model can actually significantly, efficiently realize what we want. We don't need millions of parameters. We just have a huge kind of parameter to make the beamforming works. So this kind of combination of our kind of knowledge, our systems, and the large scale models, this kind of combination should be always considered when we really want to kind of proceed with the speech the technologies are beyond.
Interesting. So what you're saying is, in going forward, we are not going to solve this with just more data or more computing. You're saying we need to think about new, architectures or, okay. Can you say more? Actually, let me turn the question around a little bit and say, where do you see the future of speech recognition going? What do you think we'll have in 2 years or in 5 years? And what do you hope we can be able to achieve in 10 years?
I think that multimodality becomes more important. So first, again, the large language model is a kind of great capability for handling some kind of human knowledge and so on. and the speech has their own kind of a way to deliver our kind of information, not only contents, but also speaker or other the emotion or other information, so on. Multimodality can actually complementary of these kind of the directions. And of course, image, video are another multimodality. And we can have other sensor information and so on. So I think this kind of combination of the multimodality is very important. However, in this kind of integration, again, I want to kind of make the note that if we use this for our daily conversation, real-time low latency capabilities are very important. So in that sense, again, the speech the centric approach as an interface would be one of the kind of a key component when we consider to work for the multimodal the language model capability. And the second part is that the whether we can improve the interpretability more. Again, I just want to kind of raise the examples came from the multilingual speech processing. I think we need to have some better ideas of disentangle what is the language independent problems and what is the language dependent problems. And for example, for the language independent the nature, we should more focus on the phoneme or phone representation or some other kind of a new representation, but that can be more kind of a handling the language independency. We definitely have some language independent speech the information, and then we have some more kind of language dependent component on top of it, so that our kind of multilingual the speech processing has an efficient realization based on this kind of disentanglement, and that should also be realized by the architecture. What we can also think about a new representation to kind of disentangle this language independent and language dependent. And the last part, I am thinking about the important the future speech technology is to understand entire human conversations, not only from the kind of content, but also the atmosphere, or even we can think about the understanding the whole environment. So some people may also call it world model, where the multimodality is a key component, and the speech and audio signals are another key component, because speech and audio component can providing the information of the atmosphere in the conversation, atmosphere in the kind of acoustic environment, and we can also providing the spatial information. So this kind of entire the modeling of our world and the conversations would be the important future step for the future technologies of speech. Yeah.
Yes. No, I agree. So true conversational intelligence, even if you stuck to audio, would involve understanding the acoustic environment, all the events happening. Yes, I agree. That's amazing. So let me sort of give you one of my worries, though. You and I are both academics. And one of the things I've noticed over the last few years is that as we have made more and more strides, it's actually true that if you think about all the advances that have happened, they've all originated in academia. Maybe I'll give Google some credit for transformers, but even that was a summer intern. So what I'm thinking is academia has driven a lot of this research, but because of the needs of current models, large computing and a lot of data, it's starting to be harder and harder to do this research in academia. How do you see this going forward? Are we stifling our main source of innovation, or are new models developing? When I say models, I don't mean technical model, I mean paradigms where we can actually overcome this and continue to make academic contributions to this field.
This is a very important our kind of the community. So I'm very kind of carefully try to answer them. First, as you said, I agree that many of the innovations, the ideas that come from the academia, I would say, because we have a very the flexibility of working on the long-term the research activities. For example, again, current large language models, which is great, but many of the technologies come from the actually speech recognition researchers in academia, including you. We are actually quite actively working on the language modeling part, coming from the N-gram to the neural language model, recurrent neural network language model, and then now it is scaled by industry and the big impact from them. But again, I want to mention that these kind of core technologies come from mainly from the ASR researchers, and also that comes from the academic the research institutions, or sometimes it can be from the industry, but having a lot of collaboration with the academic the researchers to make this happen. And this is not the only example. The speech recognition core technologies, and I am also that I want to emphasize that the multi-speaker techniques, which is now still kind of ongoing, and many of the exciting techniques also come from the academia. So at first, as a kind of innovative ideas, we are having a kind of lot of the contributions, and even for the future, these kind of contributions may they continue. Like again, your neural network, the recurrent neural network language model is 2010, right? Yeah, but that's becomes a quite kind of a large impact now. But this is not only for us to kind of contribute. Another important contribution for us is providing the shared the activities across the academia and industry. The benchmark is very important, and this kind of activity is actually having a long history in the speech recognition research, originally having some kind of the academic community or DARPA community to kind of build this kind of benchmark, the activities and the benchmark research. And now that it becomes a kind of a model for the other researchers to also working on it. Same data, same benchmark, same kind of criteria, and then all kind of technologies are compared. This kind of benchmarking activities is for us the most kind of important. In addition to this the benchmarking the activity, challenge and the workshop activities are also very important. So this is the place that the academic researchers should actually work on for me. This is because we know that a lot of kind of ways to kind of collaborate, providing a collaborative environment. We can also be a kind of less the commercial activity driven the ways to the making some kind of the evaluation metrics and the ranking and so on. So this is actually important for us to spend our effort.
I didn't mean to say we are in contrast in any way. I think academia and industry have always worked well together. And I was just thinking about how it's harder for academics in some situations to be able to contribute. But you're right. There are many other ways we can, and also we can grow these partnerships.
Yes. And again, as you said, the complementary environments are most important. And I also want to kind of introduce our recent activities, which is to try to reproduce OpenAI Whisper. This is the first the scaling and the large the models the great performance came from the OpenAI Whisper is actually quite kind of impressive for the community, and which definitely kind of are getting the benefit from such kind of industrial activities. But at the same time, these kind of activities often lose the interpretability, transparency, and so on. Because for the company, these kind of factors are a little bit kind of a lower priority than getting a better performance or getting a better product and so on. So my group is try to kind of put more emphasis on the reproduction of these kind of activities, so that the industry is kind of scaling and academic research institutes to reproduce and all kind of making the process transparency so that all the kind of community can get the benefit of this kind of scaling through the kind of the open source or shared model, the activities, and so on. So again, this kind of a complementary effort is always required in this kind of technology involvement. And I think these kind of approaches are the most important part when the academic research institution is contributing to the community. Yeah.
And I also should emphasize that some of the things you're doing with helping reproduce these, they're actually going to serve another very important goal that you already mentioned once, namely to really gain understanding of these models to sort of make them more explainable to the users. We need to be able to play with them and play with the guts of them, open them up, as they say. And some of the work you're doing really enables that. So that's really great. Very helpful. Thank you so much for doing it. I had one sort of question which you may not expect. And I was going to say, in a lot of the work that we do, we have some vision of the future where we want to go. I'm often motivated by things in science fiction. Is there a favorite science fiction scenario you have in mind, or that maybe in a movie or a book that motivates you to do what you're doing?
Yes. So, probably this is a little bit cultural. As you may know, Japanese culture, we have a lot of actually the very advanced the robot, humanoid robot in the animation, or in the kind of the comic manga. So many of the motivations or kind of the future technology perspectives for me actually came from this kind of animation and the manga. So the many people when I was a child, the many kind of my generation, their parents or adult often complained about such kind of the movies, animation or manga. They may kind of lose the creativity, and they instead we should read a lot of the books of the traditional one, the classical one, and so on. But I'm very kind of excited that nowadays such kind of a lot of the scientific fiction, the types of the kind of Japanese the animations are popular, and then that becomes kind of the important our kind of the future, the research, the ideas and so on. And I often get some kind of inspiration from them. Yeah.
Thank you, Shinji. That was really an excellent conversation. I'm going back with a lot of nice insights. Thank you, everybody, who watches this video. Hopefully, you also learned some things. If you have any comments or questions, please get back to us. And Shinji, I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sanjeev. And again, speech technologies are very exciting topics. So if you're interested in, let's work together and let's change the world. Thank you.
And there you have it, listeners. Thank you so much for listening to this 4th episode of our Digital Live podcast. A big thank you also to Jared Pierman from the Johns Hopkins Center for Media and Technology Solutions for making this recording possible. In closing, we welcome you to explore our other episodes on all leading podcast platforms such as Apple, Amazon, and Spotify. We welcome you further to watch the video versions on YouTube at IEEE Signal Processing Society and at our website on IEEE Signal Processing Society. Until next time, keep learning and innovating. Bye-bye.